Good Sunday morning. Welcome to Inside Tennessee. We hope you enjoyed your Christmas. And joining us, a present that we always love this time of year, Susan Richardson Williams, who's a Republican, runs her own PR shop, and Don Bosch, who's a Democrat, runs his own law firm, are here to break down the year in review. We're talking about the person of the year, the politician of the year at the local, state, national, and overall level. This is one of my favorite broadcasts. Coming up next week, the second favorite. All right, let's get right to it, because you, for our viewers who are not dedicated, last year at this time, you predicted who would be the person of the year locally, and that's where we're going to start. Let's start first with who it was, Don, for you this year, and then I'll tell you who you had.
So this year, it was difficult, but I put the City Council, Knoxville City Council, as a body. I think that they demonstrated a lot of leadership. They actually got into some, I won't call them disagreements, but political differences with the mayor, and sort of prevailed, and that's unusual for our community. And but they showed a lot of thought, a lot of patience, a lot of ability to work together, and so I thought it should be the Knoxville City Council.
And who was your winner this year, Susan?
My winner was Sheriff Tom Spangler. Sheriff has been battling pancreatic cancer. He's gone through a couple of different treatments for his chemotherapy, and he maintained his work schedule. Crime has been great in Knox County this year, and I mean, he means a lot to me because of what he's gone through. And so, in my book, he's a winner.
And just to reiterate, if you were watching last year, you would have heard Susan predict that the winner would be Randy Boyd, which tracks. He's had a successful year.
He had a great year.
Don, your winner was Larson Jay. Remind us why you picked Commissioner Jay.
He, at the time, was the strongest voice in leading county commission, was posturing to become or run for county mayor, which he's filed, and he is clearly running. And so I like to think that holds up pretty well, but that's why I suggested it might be Larson.
Let's move to the loser. Again, this is a pejorative, but it just, in essence, means it wasn't the greatest year. Don, who was your loser on the local
Tragically,
level?
our community always generates a few of those. But I had a tie. And Richard Bean of the Knox County Juvenile Detention Center, we know that story and the problems that were unearthed and uncovered about Richard Bean. And then Justin Biggs. He, managed to avoid indictment.
Trustee.
His office, as a county trustee, his office is under attack. He's had others indicted in that office, I believe. And he's got a primary challenge by Nick McBride, and that I predict that Nick McBride's going to beat him pretty handily in a primary. And as an incumbent being beat in this community, that's rare, but I think that's going to happen. He's had a bad year.
Susan, your loser.
Well, I don't want to call her a loser because I like her.
Go ahead, you'll get that call. Yeah.
But she has had a rough year. There are two things she tried to get passed, and one was Chilhowie Park Emerald Youth Project, and her own council didn't support her fully on that. And then she personally got involved in trying to pass the city sales tax increase. She came on our show and said she was out knocking on doors, and she told us she had an 80% approval, if you remember, on her door knocking. But unfortunately, that 80% did not follow through on the election. Right. And so, will that carry over this year? We'll find out. I mean, she's got a new city council, and they actually have no necessarily have allegiance to her, but she's still got some holdovers.
Two major issues that she did not come through on, but there's 20 others that she did, and they're much quieter. Those were big flagship things. I would equate those to the first 2 times that Governor Lee tried to get the vouchers bills passed, and he couldn't do it. But those are big issues, but she did some other really good work for the community.
So, Mayor Kincannon, there you had Mike Ragsdale. Explain why.
Well, because we have a huge debt in the county, and it was generated back when Mike Ragsdale was mayor. We still have a huge debt the county is facing, and frankly, I don't know how they're going to deal with it. I mean, nobody ever wants to talk about a tax increase. Obviously, property property sales or anything. But we have this large encumbrance upon us, and it's going to have to be faced at some point in time.
Your prediction was Andy Fox. We only have a minute. Don, why did you put Commissioner Fox in that role?
Well, he's such an outlier, even on a more conservative body like County Commission that we have in Knoxville. He is sort of that hard Rhonda Lee, Andy Fox, MAGA right segment, and they just put some ridiculous things that are not the purview of County Commission. They're national politics. They're flag issues for hard conservatives, and he's unfortunately lived up to it on County Commission, in my opinion.
You both had the same issue of the year predicted for the year, and that was the stadium. What is your issue of the year, Don?
This year, again, ballpark development, and what I mean by that, what's going up around the ballpark, okay, the retail developments, the restaurant developments, and allowing the merchants that are already there a little better access, because there's quite a bit of complaints about, hey, our patrons can't get here, parking is a problem, and the Gay Street Bridge together. That footprint over downtown to Old City Knoxville, that's my issue.
Quickly, your local issue of the
Same
year.
thing, development around the stadium in the Old City, and frankly, hotel development is astounding what's happened.
Exploding.
And hopefully they can fill those heads and beds, but man, it's been amazing what's happened.
Maybe the only time we agree tonight.
Back with a winner, loser, and issue on the state level this year in 2025 from Don and Susan right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee, glad you're with us. Again, hope you had a Merry Christmas. We're back recapping 2025 and the year in politics. We're focused at the state level with your winner. Who was it, Don Bosch?
You know, I got out of the traditional political mode on this one because, frankly, given the Republican dominance in our state and some things I just was not happy with, did not think was well done, I thought who was really the most successful person in 2025? And without question, Tony Vitella. The guy he's a rock star everywhere he goes. There's not a single poor word. We're going to miss him. I wish him well out on the West Coast in the majors, but in 2025, he was the guy.
Coach of the Tennessee Vols, championship winning Vols, and now the head coach for the first time, head manager, I should say, at the San Francisco Giants. He's going to have fun by the Bay. All right, Susan, who is your winner at the state level?
Well, I have an unusual one, and they were in politics, and I have to disagree with why they're winners.
Not anymore in politics.
Well, they're not, but this was the former Speaker, Glenn Cassida, and his administrative assistant, Cade Cothran. They were found guilty of federal corruption charges, included wire fraud, bribery, money laundering, funneling money into kickbacks from a scheme of a fake company. And they got convicted by a Trump district attorney, a judge, Trump appointees, all of them.
Right.
And guess what? They got pardoned. So they never served a day in prison. And in my opinion, that's about as big a win as you can have. Oh my gosh, I've been convicted, and yet I'm never going to serve a day.
I could say so much about that. That's so terrible, but
we'll move
it is
on.
what it is.
Speaker Sexton was your predicted winner. He still tracks.
He's still doing very well.
And Don, yours was the winner, was the state Dem chair.
That one doesn't track so well.
That was not so good.
So we're more work to go, but I'm confident we're going to get there.
Let's move on to your winner, or your loser, at the statewide level. Who was it this year?
I started mentioning this last week on the show, but I've heard some recent experts in the field, Tennessee farmers. They are going to get hit so hard, certainly in early 25. Many of these farmers are on the ACA healthcare plans. These farmers are also getting destroyed by Donald Trump's tariffs, their ability to sell their crops, their cattle, their product. We may lose as much as 25% of our farmland in the next year, farmers, and it's really, really going to be hard on Tennessee farmers. And I would say they're an unfortunate loser, and we need to protect those farms and those people.
In 2025, the loser at the state level.
Well, it has to be former state rep and former Republican Party Chairman Robin Smith. Mm-hmm. She pled guilty to the money laundering scheme that Cassida and Cothran got indicted and convicted on, and yet Robin is going to prison in early January because she has not yet received a pardon from President Trump. So I got to call her the loser by far.
You had predicted it would be the Democratic Party. That pretty well tracks,
that
given the results of several elections.
Yeah, that definitely tracked.
Don, you had a loser as Governor Bill Lee in the voucher program. He actually passed
won.
what he
He did
wanted.
pass it after the third try. He did, but it is very controversial. Lack of transparency. There are a number of people, and I'm not talking about people that are in the political know or pay attention. Ordinary people are saying, "Wait a minute!" You know, when over 80% of those went to people that were had their children already were in private school. The income levels are really high. I mean, it really is a subsidy for the wealthy in our state.
Your state issue of the year for 2025 is what, Don?
Again, vouchers, and I just already what's in place, but the effort to expand the vouchers and the voucher-like programs, and it is going to draw some controversy, and the rural legislators, I think, may rise up sufficiently. I don't know what else Governor Lee could give them like he did the last time to get them on board, or some of them on board, but I think educational vouchers are going to be a big issue.
Susan, your issue of 2025?
Same thing, education freedom scholarships. It was Governor Lee's big push, and he won, but he couldn't have won without the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor. They came in hard and heavy on this, and particularly on some of those rural legislators. And so they succeeded, and remains to be seen whether the state can afford it. We'll find out in a couple of years, but certainly it was, I think, the main issue.
That's exactly what you predicted it would be. According to my notes last year, you said it would be vouchers again this year. Don, you had state revenue returns as your issue of the year. The budget, that's certainly tracking at the end of this year.
It is, and I think we're going to see, and I'm going to mention that a little bit later, but that's going to be a big issue coming up.
All right. We're going to move to the national level. Don and Susan will break down that on the winner, loser, and issue of the year for us right after this. Back with our look back at 2025 with Don and Susan. Susan, we'll start with you at the national level. We're talking winners, losers, and the issue of 2025. Who is your winner?
This was not easy, I have to say. I'm not sure I had a great thought about winners on the national level, but I did come up with Steve Witkoff and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. They were engaged in peace talks in the Middle East with the Palestinians, the other Middle East leaders, and they're also working on the Ukraine and Russia. So those two have really been very engaged in trying to get some peace in the Middle East and in Ukraine, and for that, I'll give them kudos for that.
Who do you adorn the title of winner on the national level, Don?
Like Susan, I had some trouble. I was looking at it from a different perspective. But the person that's really impressed me, and particularly on the Democratic side, is Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona. This is a guy that has taken on Trump, full up, but not in a disrespectful or kind of silly way, sometimes like we've seen Governor Gavin Newsom take on Trump using sort of Trump's methodology. But here's a guy, he's a war hero, he's an astronaut. His wife, Gabby Giffords, suffered a horrific political injury, being shot while at a rally. This is a guy that's really credible for the Democratic Party and for more of that centrist stripe of the Democratic Party, which some people think we need to be there, others think we need to go more out, further out to the left. But I really like Mark Kelly, and I think he's done a great job.
You predicted the winner would be Mitch McConnell.
Oh, yeah, because he's out. He's gone. And what a happy guy.
Susan, your winner that you predicted, Elon Musk.
Yeah, well,
he's out too.
He's out too.
He still has
I
$1 trillion.
I remember saying he could be the winner or he could be the loser, because Trump, in fact, could either love him or hate him, and that happened.
So let's move to your loser of 2025 on the national level.
Okay, mine is the Democrat Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. You know, he's been sort of the establishment guy, and during the shutdown, they all turned on him. And AOC and Jasmine Crockett and that group from the left wing of the Democrat Party, they're going after him. And I have a feeling he is not going to survive too long. So he has a tough road to hoe, but He's got to be the loser.
Chuck Schumer may not be Senate Majority Leader, but he will remain in the Senate as long as he wants.
He's
and
not
pretty
the
old.
Majority Leader.
No,
he's the minority leader.
Give it time.
Don, who is your loser at the national level?
Basically, most federal agencies with three-letter names: Health and Human Services, HHS, ICE, the DOJ, the FBI. These were storied organizations, certainly DOJ and FBI, and their leadership at the top is abysmal and an embarrassment and not doing well and not reflecting well on our nation.
You predicted it would be J.D. Vance, the vice president.
Well, that holds up pretty well. I don't think he's done very well either, but these folks have lapped him.
All right, Susan, your loser that you predicted was Speaker Mike Johnson. Why did you select him?
I think at the time because there was, we'd already changed speakers once, and he was having a very difficult time rallying the troops to get support. He's done better than I thought he would do.
Lasted longer.
He's lasted longer than we all thought he would last. He's beginning to see
that shelf life may be up now as this
he's
show
beginning to
airs.
see some folks pull away.
Your issue this year, what is it?
My issue this year was the shutdown. This was the longest one we've had, 43 days, and Republicans were mad about it, the Democrats were mad about it, and to be honest, they finally reopened the government, but it's only open until January. So, they didn't really solve anything, particularly issues of health care and other things that are still out there.
How about you, Don?
The economy. We hear such disparate things coming out of Trump's mouth, out of the president's mouth, that just don't match what ordinary folks are seeing, what their cost of housing, their cost of groceries. The only thing that's gotten better is gasoline. And I'm sorry, the president, whoever it is, has very little to do with the price of gas. It is down, great, good for all of us, but everything else is not down.
You had predicted that it would be Donald J. Trump keeping campaign promises in 2025. That was going to be the measure.
Lowered all those groceries a lot, didn't he?
Susan, he
has kept some promises.
The border.
Yeah.
And in a harsh, brutal way.
Yeah.
And that was your issue. You said it would be the border and the economy.
And it definitely has been the border.
Yeah.
If he has been successful at any point, you might argue that ICE may have gone too far, but the border is secure at this point.
We're going to be back with our politician and person of the year from Don and Susan. Hang on for that. We'll see you in a matter of minutes. Back on Inside Tennessee, hope you're having a great start to Sunday, and this is really a catch-all block where we kind of sum up the year that was 2025. Susan, you have a list of things and people that you haven't mentioned. Let's roll through it and why you labeled it the way you did.
Well, I looked at the local politician of the year, the state politician of the year, and the national politician of the year. My local has to be Glenn Jacobs. Glenn Jacobs, our mayor, has been in every county in the state of Tennessee this year, generally with Marsha Blackburn, who is running for governor.
Well, and before, when he thought he was running for governor and got out of Marsha's way.
Yeah, and he pulled out this past year, and I think, quite frankly, that disappointed a lot of people, because I think there are many of us who thought that he could be elected governor, and I was personally disappointed when he pulled out. But he has, in fact, jumped on the Marsha Blackburn bandwagon and as said, he shows up with her in almost every place she goes. So I'll give him kudos for throwing his hat in the ring in that regard. State.
Every year it's your guy. He's going to think you have a crush on him.
Sexton. I don't have a crush on him, but I do think he's smart. He does a good job. He's able to keep a lot of disparate personalities in check and is able to get things passed. So I will give him that. My national person will shock all of you, but it's Zoran Mandami. That's the guy
mayor of New York City.
Mayor of New York City, who was a socialist who everybody came out against except New Yorkers. And
had a cordial meeting with the president after his win.
Trump called him every name he could think of during the campaign, and then went and had a very cordial meeting with him in the Oval. And I think Trump came around somewhat.
I just want to remind our viewers, last year we talked to you about this, and we had winner-loser issue, and you looked at it more globally. You had the winner as Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So that tracks. Your loser was anyone who crosses Trump.
And
that would
has that
just
been
ask
true?
Marjorie Taylor Greene about that question.
And Elon Musk.
Right.
And I could name at least a dozen of those.
And your issue was the economy and gas prices, in particular energy prices, to be more exact. Don, let's move to you. Your catch-all block, what you have written down and what you want people to know about 2025.
I always look at it Person of the Year and who it may even transcend, and it does transcend American politics, but it has a strong tie to the U.S. policy or being from the United States. No question, this year for me is Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope in church's history, from Chicago, White Sox fan, and interesting guy. Spent a lot of time in his formative years in Peru, so he has a tie to another country. But it's just having been raised Catholic and really interesting and fun to hear a pope come out and talking
English.
I'm from St. Louis, and he's a good Midwestern guy, and wow, I know that guy because those are the people that were the priests at the churches I went to when I was young, and the teachers, and it's an interesting, a comforting thing for me personally to see that, and it's fun to watch. And he is speaking out on social justice issues again in a way, frankly, that Pope Francis did as well, and Pope John Paul II, and he's taking Trump on where Trump needs to be taken on.
Anything else in 2025 that catches your eye?
Yeah, the issue, I think 2025, the economy again, we've talked about that, but also the ICE methodology of deportations. And we see these horrific films of throwing women on the street, arresting American citizens, taking children, sometimes disabled children, out of cars. This is awful. This is not what Donald Trump said he was going to do. He was going to get the people out, the worst of the worst. He's getting everybody. We're going to see a backlash in our economy in this. I mean, he's taking away our workers, our restaurant workers, our caregivers. This is going to be a real problem for us going forward. We've got to figure out a better solution. And then just the continued, the utter lawlessness and chaos of the Donald J. Trump administration. It really is a mess. This time way more than the first term.
Just to remind people, last year your predictions would be on the winning side, would be Gretchen Whitmer and Josh Shapiro. Why did you pick them last year?
Because I think they're emerging Democratic politicians that will be emerging leaders, have continued to be emerging leaders, and still will be our viable candidates to receive the Democratic nomination for president in 2028.
Both of those guys, woman
yes.
and guy, are much more moderate, and Don's party is trending to the left, and that is a big problem for the Democrat Party. In Tennessee,
says you.
Well, in Tennessee, we saw Ashley Bain run against Matt Van Epps, and predictions she was going to run close. She didn't because
9
she
points.
was far left.
It is,
nice
but in a district that was 22 points Trump.
Well, it was Trump, but your special election, we can argue this all day. Special election, you don't have the turnout you're going to have in a presidential election. So to win by 9 points was fine.
Don, you mentioned something as your loser last year as a prediction that I want to get both your thoughts on, and that is the U.S. Supreme Court. One of the things that the Chief Justice said a long time ago is his biggest concern was that the court would be predictable and looked at as political, where for decades what they said about an issue was just accepted and the country moved on.
It is incredibly political now. It is incredibly predictable in how it's going to break down at a 6-3 split to the conservative side. Frankly, it is not a court that I am proud of. And I don't think, frankly, in his heart, John Roberts is probably proud of this court, even though he's had to buy into much of that hard right perception. But every chief wants a court that is well thought of in history, and this one certainly will not be.
Susan, 20 seconds on the court.
I don't have any problem with the Supreme Court like it is. When the Democrats are in charge, we all disagreed with what they came out with too. So it's certainly we have a majority, and this is one Trump is proud of. And again, I have no problems with it, but I don't go before the courts.
I've always said that the best Supreme Court in the world would be 3 conservatives, 3 liberals, and 3 swing votes. We do not have that.
Yeah.
Don, Susan, we appreciate the breakdown. We're going to see you next week on Inside Tennessee, where they predict the future. Yes, the crystal ball comes out for 2026. We'll see you next week.